Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Dawn Campbell. I'm your host for this special IAPC&M CPD call. Now, normally I'm saying it's a business building call, but this time is about looking after ourselves because we're very passionate about supplying and providing support to our members so that you can better help yourselves as well as your clients. So in the hot seat today, we have Teresa Mack. Hello, Teresa.
Hello.
Congratulations all round. She's just achieved her IAPC&M APC accreditation status, so well done there. And for those of you who don't know Teresa, she's a grief recovery specialist, and over the last 30 years has had a great deal of experience working in the mental health and self-development field. Now, I know from all the conversations that I've had with her, she is passionate about promoting understanding around trauma and loss and grief that leads to a level of acceptance and healing. So her work has had long-lasting effects on adults and children alike. So we're going to learn in the next 60 minutes how to better support ourselves and our clients navigate these difficult times that we're experiencing. Because as Teresa shared with me when we first spoke, there are lots of different types of grief and loss, not just the loss of a loved one. So before we dive in and explore her 7 myths, I just wanted to share something with you, and it kind of made me laugh because I had rather a lot of chili in tonight's vegetable stir fry, and I was feeling a little bit flushed, and it reminded me of a story that Teresa shared with me when she was a young mum, and she went into this shop feeling very glam in her new shiny jacket, and the shop owner said to her, wow, you're hot. And she very a bit embarrassed, said, oh, thank you. And then he said, you must be sweating in that jacket. They didn't quite. So that's a little funny story about her. She's got a good sense of humor. So anyway, I don't want to take up any more of Teresa's time because it's a very important subject and we only have 60 minutes. So over to you, please, Teresa.
Thank you very much. I still remember that jacket so well. It was so blue and shiny and I would love to still have it, but now it's gone. Yeah, thank you very much for coming. Welcome to this. I believe that this is really an important time to deal with grief and loss. No one thought 2 years on the pandemic, we would still struggle. And I believe that even more people will need our service, but maybe you are struggling as well. In March 2020, when we started going into like self-isolation and we weren't really sure what happened, but I guess a lot of us thought in a year's time, oh, it will be better. A year later, March 2021, nope. Then the Omicron virus came and things we didn't know, are they getting better, are they getting worse? And I remember there was a story about a couple, they had saved up for their holiday, they went to South Africa, they arrived at the airport, and then Boris Johnson made the announcement, well, this is going to be a red country or on the red list. And they had to turn around and go back to England because I couldn't afford to go into quarantine. So when you thought, or when you read how to support your clients, busting the 7 myths of grief and loss, most people think of bereavement. And this whole session is about becoming aware the losses your clients will come with, but maybe you will change a little bit and look at your life and think, yeah, I had a lot of losses as well. So today we this is, can you see this now? Yeah. We are going
yes,
to,
I can. Thank you.
We're going to discuss how you can help your clients better with these areas, but be aware as well, maybe things will come up for you and be okay with that. And then hopefully you will know how to accept this and help yourself as well. You will get a different definition of grief. I believe the first one I will give you, yeah, that makes sense. But the second one might be a bit surprising. Then award-winning behavior and how to spot that in yourself and in your clients. I will tell you later that I did award-winning behavior today and I was quite shocked because I didn't expect that. And also what to say and what not to say to your clients, to your friends, to anybody who you have contact with. So the two definitions of grief is a normal and natural reaction to loss. And yes, that makes sense. Someone dies, you feel sad, no problem. Let's look at this second one. And I'm not going too much into that because I will come back to it at the end. Grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or a change in a familiar pattern of behavior. So what do I mean by that? Imagine before the pandemic, you were driving to work, you pass Starbucks, you get your coffee, you get to work, there's Betty, you say hello, what did you do at the weekend? You exchange, and that's your familiar pattern of behavior. All of a sudden, you're told, we are working from home now. You might feel relieved. I don't have to be stuck in traffic anymore. I don't have to pay for my petrol. And also, I'm not going to see Betty anymore. I'm not having my coffee. The guy I said hi to, the one who greeted me with the smile, that is all gone. So grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or a change in a familiar pattern of behavior. So what are myths? Myths are widely held but false beliefs and ideas. And myths around griefs are ideas that people believe are helpful. So we have certain ideas, and the ideas come from, we watched our parents and our grandparents and maybe society, the way school reacted, and telly. I will come back to that later as well. So I said 7 myths. Grief recovery method teaches 6 myths. When you Google, there are 10 myths, 12 myths, so it doesn't really matter. So you might even think of, oh, I grew up with that myth. So first I will go through all the 7 myths, and then you can ask questions about them. And then in part 2, we will look a little bit about, so how do we deal with this new information? When I trained in 2016 to become a grief recovery specialist, it was because my friend's son had died. I wanted to help people like her. I didn't really know how to deal with bereaved parents. I'm originally a jewelry maker. I do craft courses. And I sat in the training and I was taught, before you help other people, you have to go through it yourself. And I was like, I want half of my money back. I didn't say that, of course, but I thought I didn't have any losses. I mean, I had like my dad's uncle died when I was like a little child, but I didn't feel anything. So I was convinced that I was only there to help other people. And when I shared with people that I am a grief recovery specialist, they say, yeah, bereavement is really, really bad. However, there are over 40 losses we can have during our lifetime. So what could they be? Okay, bereavement, pet loss. Maybe we can stretch to divorce. Yeah, that's a loss. But what about the things we're excited about, like getting married? Well, why is there a loss? Or moving house? Remember the second definition, conflicting feelings about a change in a familiar pattern of behavior. So 8 years ago, I decided to move from London to Leeds. I was excited. So why would there be a loss? Well, I homeschooled my kids for 2 years and we practically lived in the National History Museum. And all of a sudden, I couldn't just go into town. I had lovely neighbors. I know I could just go there for a cup of tea. I lost that all. So other losses you might not expect to hear in coaching or from friends could be childhood abuse. Imagine someone dies and you say, oh, you must be devastated. And all of a sudden they remember something terrible, a trauma, and they don't have this, or you must be sad. And what did they lose? Loss of trust, loss of control of your body. Your children, they go to school and they come home and say, my teacher is retiring, or she's going to another school. School transitions, children, they're in primary school and they go to secondary school, but not all their friends will join them. So later in the second part, we will talk a little bit about, well, what do we say? Because if we accept that this is a loss and the child or the adult is grieving, then we might react a bit different than if we think only bereavement is worthy of grief. It will get better with time. Well, that comes from the idea that when you break your arm and You put a cast on, 6 weeks later, you take it off, ta-da, it's healed. What we don't see is that the body did a lot of action. The bone grew back together, the tissue was over, new blood vessels, and if you have an infection, the white blood cells go and take all away. Time only passes. Time doesn't heal anything. The problem with that is, with this myth and belief, people have trauma in childhood and 30, 40, 50 years later, they are still affected. Or you get divorced and you're really sad about that, although maybe you were the one initiating it. And a year later, your friends are bored and they don't want to hear about this anymore. And they say like, are you not over it yet? It was a year ago. So time doesn't heal, and it might not get better with time. Maybe what happened is that you grew your life around it. My friend is not the same person she was when her son died. For the first year, she sat on my sofa and she was like a zombie. She couldn't eat. She didn't know what to do. These days, she is actively raising her granddaughter. She's still missing him, and it still hurts. Are you getting a new one? Oh my God, I still want to say that. It still comes up to me. You know, it's like I'm so trained and someone tells me their cat dies, their dog dies, and I can feel how this question wants to come out. And of course, I'm not saying it. But what is the idea behind that? The idea is relationship equals things. I love my mobile phone. Don't get me wrong. I use it a lot. I get it out all the time. I'm sort of really attached to it. But if I lose it, I get a new one. If your child has a dog as a best friend and he comes home from school and the dog is there and he tells him how difficult or how amazing, how exciting the day was, the dog dies and you said, oh, let's get another one. That new puppy is not the same like the older dog. The puppy might chew his socks off and is pulling something and it destroyed the homework and is not sitting still and wants to cuddle, wants to run around. So it's not the same. And before I continue, let's remember that when we say these things, it's not because we are sinister. We really want the person to feel better. I remember I had a really squeaky pushchair and it probably drove my parents crazy. So there was a skip and they threw the pushchair in the skip and they got me a really brand shiny new one. It was lovely. I didn't like it. I wanted my squeaky one. So when we get divorced, no one says straight away, are you getting a new husband? So we can recognize that some things take a bit longer to overcome or are more difficult to replace. But if we rush to replace that favorite teddy with the chewed up ear because there are 10 other teddies in the shop that look exactly the same, maybe we don't validate that there's a loss and the child is sad. And we don't give time to process the grief. So we cannot make a judgment about how easy it is for someone else to replace something or someone. So later you will hear that instead of when you feel this, I mean, I've said things to, when my friend had a stillbirth, I really said to her, that was years before the training, at least you have your other children. I would never say that now, but I wanted her to feel better. So now you're getting all this new information, and please keep in mind if you said things like that, when you said them, it probably was in the best intention. So this is not to criticize anybody or saying, oh, this was wrong. It's just really purely, we grew up with these myths, we grew up with these ideas, and I learned different things, and I'm just sharing that with you. And some things will resonate and you will say, oh yeah, when that happened to me, when someone said that to me, that didn't feel right. Or you think, well, no, I don't agree with you. Why not get a new dog? And you know what? Everything is okay. I'm just like sharing my information and what resonated with me. So this is, you can see, person very busy on the mobile phone, reading, cooking. So if you don't think about the pain, keep busy, it won't hurt that much. And people say that really often, isn't it? Like they say, I just want to keep busy. I'm just going to do this now. The problem with this is then You go to bed, it's dark, it's quiet. You can't be busy the whole day. So it's crushing down on you, all the emotions and everything that you avoided to feel or to think about comes crushing down on you. It's not about changing what you're doing. If you were jogging around the block, don't think, oh, I have to stop this now because I have to sit with my feelings all the time. And for some people, that can be really, really difficult. If we are aware that maybe we are doing things to avoid to think about things or to feel, and then we think, oh yeah, time will heal, so I'll just be busy for 3 weeks and I will feel better, that might not be really the case. So yeah, just think about that these things could be an indication, like if you have a friend who is struggling with something and they start to be crazy busy, they might get really exhausted at some point or really crush. Don't show your feelings. I don't know how it was in your childhood. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, and when I cried, my dad said, go to the mirror and look how ugly you look, and then go and wash your hands and wash your face. So that was his way of dealing with my feelings. And I know now that wasn't anything personal. He just never learned how to deal with someone crying. So we hear things like, oh, don't make me cry, come on. And then we look away. Or people say, oh, I can't let my kids see how hurt I feel because their dad left me. You're still showing it because body language, the things we say and don't say, the kids will see that you are not well, you are sad. But what they're learning then, if you don't show your feelings, oh, it's not safe to show my feelings, so I better don't tell mom I got bullied and I'm really scared. So don't show your feelings is, I can say, no, I'm British because I became British. So we Brits are very good in that. How are you? Oh, I'm fine, thank you. How are you? And I know this is a greeting and we don't want to, you not just met the neighbor on going home and we don't want to tell them our life story. But are there maybe occasions where it's really important to share our feelings and show our feelings? So when we often show our feelings, people become so uncomfortable because we are not told in school how to do this. We never learn. Like kids, they get sent to the principals or the restrooms or go to the nurse. We haven't experienced that it's safe and it's good to just show your feelings. I mean, you would never say to your friend who is laughing, don't laugh so loud, or that's not good. No, what we did, we divide feelings into positive feelings, which means they're acceptable, and negative feelings. But feelings are feelings. We feel what we feel. And then people come with intellectual comments, or they pat us, or, oh, don't worry, it's going to be okay. But we feel what we feel. So we also don't want to then compare. We are often scared, if I show my feelings, but something worse happened to you, what are you going to think about me? And again, it's like, yes, there are terrible things happening in the world just right now. However, we feel what we feel. And the thinking part is, I can understand intellectually, there are people who have it even worse, but your suffering and the suffering of your clients is real in that moment. So this is something probably you have heard that people are told regularly. Cruise is an amazing organization to help grieving people, bereaved people. However, they give out this leaflet that grief happens in stages. And originally, Elizabeth Kübler-Ross, who carved this idea, and she designed 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, was actually a scientist who worked with dying people. Can you imagine someone is telling you, you've got 3 months to live? Well, the first thing I would say is, no, I'm getting a second opinion. That is not true. Then maybe I would get really angry saying, why is this happening to me? I I'm not doing anything bad. Why? There are people in the world, they're cruel and they live to, or they smoke and they drink and they live to their hundreds. I eat healthy. Why is this happening to me? Then if you're religious, you might bargaining. You say, whatever religion you pray to, if you heal me, I'm going to go to church every day, or I'm going to do something amazing and I raise money or so. Then she says you go into the depression because it's like, oh my God, this is really happening. And then you come to the stage of acceptance. I'm not saying that you don't feel those feelings, but first of all, stages have I get the picture, oh, this is a stage, and then it's got an ending, and then the next stage happened, and it's got a beginning. But feelings are often really messy. And remember the definition, conflicting feelings? So maybe you feel anger and relief at the same time. And if someone dies, are we really in denial, or do we know? Yeah, they really die. So I'm not saying there are stages or there are not stages. It's just to be a bit careful and not doubt yourself. If you say, well, I don't feel angry, what stage am I now? It's already hard enough to deal with the grief, and you don't need to put yourself in that compartment or someone else and say, oh yeah, you're in that stage now. Because again, that would be making a judgment about how they feel or what's happening inside them. And we can't do that. And then this is one I see a lot on telly. It's better to grieve on your own than amongst others. And once you become a bit more aware about these myths and you watch telly, it's so classical. People come to work and someone says, what are you doing here? You should go on holiday. You still have your bereavement leave. Why are you here? And in other cultures, they actually invite women to, they're like mourning women or wailing women, and they cry really loud, and you know, people get together. And this is a bit like, be strong, don't show your feelings, tidy yourself away. And again, how we react to people, if they want to be amongst us, can we just allow them to be? So these are the 7 myths I'm telling you about. You might remember that you grow up with other myths, or you have heard about other things. So if there are any questions about the myths or any comments, or you want to share any myths that you came across, then I would like to invite you now to do this. And I stop sharing.
Thank you, Teresa. Sean said, good point, well made, when well handled. I'm not sure which point it was, Sean, so I'll let you expand on that, if you will.
I can't remember.
That's okay. We'll come back to you.
Okay.
But
it'll come back to you. Even if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, it will come back to you.
It will. But what I will say, Teresa, is I really enjoyed listening to that. And aren't you a wonderful presenter? Brilliant. But I really loved the part about what you know, the non-linear thing about grief and how it's not always in stages. That's really interesting. I really enjoyed listening to that. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much for
high praise indeed, Sean, because you're a crisis specialist. And have you two spoken yet? I know I've introduced you, but have you had right now you've met? You'll be able to have that cup of coffee online. Okay. Debbie says quite rightly, there is an expectation that we'll be in a certain place when our emotions are actually all mixed up. So, you know, I'm going to just open it up. So anybody who wants to talk, Debbie, yes?
I was going to say, you know, what Teresa was saying about the teddy. So we had a family teddy, and that family teddy, by the time he got to my little brother, you can imagine going through 4 of us. Our beautiful Teddy Edward ended up threadbare. He was naked, bless him. He barely had any patches of fur left. And when I had my daughter, I asked for Teddy Edward. Now, my mum didn't have Teddy Edward. My aunt had taken control of Teddy Edward because my little brother actually grew up with my grandmother. So Teddy Edward stayed in her house. And my aunt had reskinned him and given him away. And there had never been a conversation. And the grief I experienced from that for so long was something that I can't describe to you, because we had a lot of things in our lives that weren't right. You know, my parents didn't stay married from when I was 4.5. So you can imagine 4 young children without a father. So losing Teddy Edward when I was in my late 20s was a real shock. And it took me a long time to come to terms with that. Now, a lot of people, including my aunt, all thought I was completely crackers, completely bonkers. But I grieved the loss of something that was a precious connection to my brothers.
Oh.
So we grieve all kinds of unusual things. And sometimes it's not until we learn about grief, because I do the same as Teresa has, that I realized what it was I felt and why I felt it, because it had so many other connotations to it. And that's the thing that people don't understand when we've had losses. They just don't understand all the other factors that go with it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That resonates
You're
really
very welcome, Teresa.
Thank you.
I think you did fabulously. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. Not finished yet.
All right, so far so good.
So now that you've got some information about the myths, let's look at, well, what is actually the implication of this? So we as coaches will have people who might want to get clarity about the direction they want to take their business or their life or whatever. We're not therapists, we're not counselors. However, they probably won't separate their issues and say, oh, this is what I talk about with my therapist and you're my coach. Because what happens if someone dies and they have memories or something happens in the family, and that was like the day before your coaching session, and they come with all these feelings and all this turmoil and all this confusion. So one of the things I mentioned, what I wanted to talk about, is award-winning behavior. And award-winning behavior is really interesting because it happened to me today. I made a joke. I said to my friend Tracy, she said, I'm coming. And I said, oh, I'm glad you're coming because I don't want to be talking to myself, ha, ha, ha. And then I'm like, oh, well, hang on a minute. What I just did was I wasn't emotionally honest that I'm actually, there's part of me, I'm worried that people are not interested in what I have to share. And I know that because I experienced childhood trauma, humor is one of my trauma responses. And it can be really good, you know, it can lighten the mood. You can, you know, when I connect, I work mostly with traumatized people, a lot of childhood trauma. However, to spot that maybe they smile a lot, they nod a lot, but they're wrenching their hands, they look really uncomfortable. I mean, on the phone it's really difficult, and we do a lot over Zoom now. So in person, you get the energy as well, but even on Zoom, you can see some body language. So listen out for things that they talk about, which is actually, you think that is not normal. This is not what should have happened, because a lot of things, when you're stuck in the coaching, is because they self-sabotage. They want to be successful, but they have this old belief, I'm not worthy of success. So no matter how hard you try to help them and you give them tips, and then it turns out, oh, my dad said to me, I will never amount to anything. So using humor, playing things down, look out for these things, because again, it ties down to the, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. Yeah, because I know I shouldn't show my feelings and I shouldn't say anything. So we are so well trained not to be emotionally honest. But if we are coached, if you want to change something, that is a conflict, isn't it? We want to change, but I don't want to be honest how I feel about this. So that could be a sticky point. So now you've got this new information. How can we help our clients? And it will also always be about ourselves, because I learn so much from my clients and I grow with everyone I help. So first of all, we can listen without judgment, because what we hear is then goes through the filter of our cultural upbringing, of our school upbringing, of our family upbringing. So if I don't allow what I've learned to cloud my judgment, and I just be a heart with ears, I just hear you, I just hear what you're saying. And of course, you're here to educate yourself, and you can read books and just learn more and more, because I think the amount of grief and loss we have right now in our society is something we've never seen before. And that is because of the pandemic. And now on top of that, like my friend, her son is British, married to a Ukrainian woman, and she posted every single day with the anxiety, oh, they're in a bomb shelter. Oh, this is happening. Oh, thank God they're now in Germany. So we are faced with people who watch the news, who might have relatives who they either died of COVID or they're now implicated by the war. So we don't get squeaky clean clients, we get real messy people with real lives. So I think it's important to have an understanding of trauma. It doesn't mean you're treating them, you're not a counselor, you're not a therapist, but have an understanding, have a bit of, for yourself as well, the knowledge. Okay, I can spot this, I can understand that. And we can learn to react differently. I learned a lot not to say things that are intellectual right, but not really helpful. So we can react calmer, maybe, not like, oh my God, are you sure? Can you imagine you're sitting in a coaching session and someone tells you about their childhood abuse they just remembered or realized? I know you're all trained to, be professional, but maybe you can identify that you have areas that still need healing or learning. And yes, I can be triggered by this, so I need to prepare a little bit of that. So the most important thing for people who share other grief and loss than bereavement, for example, childhood trauma, is that they want to be validated. They just want to hear that what we tell them is we believe them. They don't have to prove that to us, but there is this false memory syndrome. And it's a really interesting article, and it was actually invented by the guy who was accused by his daughter that he sexually abused her. And he started a lot of research to prove that people can be given false memories. And what I read about it is, yes, you can implicate a child that you got lost in the mall, because kids might have, you walk with your child and all of a sudden they go, where's my mom? Oh, there she is. So getting lost is a typical experience of children. I know my daughter, she got lost. She ran to someone. She was like 2 or 3 and she hugged their legs, and then she looked up and thought, that's not my mom. And so I could implicate to her in a way, because she has this experience of, oh, I lost my mom for a second. Oh, you remember when you were 3, you got lost in the mall. And there is actually, it really happened that a guy told this to his brother, and the mum helped because it was a research project, and he so regrets it now. And his brother started to believe and told the story, I got lost in the mall. However, you cannot give people the false memory of being really serious abused in childhood, because this is not a typical experience. So if someone says, I know this is about coaching, but you won't believe what happened. My uncle died, and all of a sudden I have these pictures in my head, and just say to them, so what would be helpful now? Tell me a bit more about it. And maybe have some numbers, crisis team numbers from your town, special organization you can refer them to, do the suicide prevention training. There's like Assist, there's Safe Talk, there are different things. So for example, you will learn when someone tells you something like tune in, like is task, TASC is like an acronym, tune in when someone talks to you, then ask like, are you thinking of completing suicide? A lot of people don't want to do that. They're scared that, oh my God, do I give them an idea? Then you state how serious this is, like this is really serious. And then you connect them to someone who's trained. So I think these are basic things we might not think as coaches that we will need them. My background is mental health, but I think have a toolkit that Maybe you will never need it, but in 10 years time, someone comes and tells you, well, actually, I feel like killing myself, and you don't want to sit there and like, what am I doing now? So look after your own mental health so you can be prepared and just are not so scared to deal with these people. So be a heart with ears. Don't feel sorry for them. Don't say, oh my God, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I can speak about this because it happened to me. I don't want anybody's empathy or sympathy. I want your empathy. I want that you believe me. And you know what? The worst happened already. A client telling you about it is maybe traumatic, and you need to be careful that they don't re-traumatize themselves too much. But the worst has happened already. And yeah, thank you for sharing this with me. So if you are in person in a room, I know that although I'm really trained, I still have this, someone starts crying and I want to pat their knee, or, you know, when they want to rub their shoulder, you just want to give them a sign, I'm here, I'm listening. However, if you deal with people who were abused, touching them can actually really trigger a traumatic reaction. So please don't touch them. You can hand them a tissue, or you can put a tissue box next to them. They will notice that, or you can say, here, I put some tissues in. Would you like a glass of water or so? And let them cry. They're not going to cry for 3 hours, believe me. They're going to let it out and then. And what you can say when they indicate that, you can see they're like, they're done with it. You just smile and you take a deep breath, and people often copy this. So you just like, wow, thank you for sharing. And they can then calm down as well. And also be emotionally honest. You can say, wow, thank you for sharing. Thank you for your trust. I have to say, this is not something I experienced. I feel a bit shocked about this, and I might need some time to digest this. And is it okay if I check in with you next week or next day or so? Please don't label them. You are so brave. My friend had secondary breast cancer, and she shared that on Facebook, and boom, so many comments. Oh, you're so brave. I so admire you. What was she supposed to do? There are things where we can be real inspiration about, or be really inspirational. Like if I climb Mount Everest, that's unusual, that's an inspiration. I have chronic pain and I go to work. And when people say to me, oh, you're such an inspiration, what have I inspired you to do any different? I mean, what am I supposed to do? Roll around on the floor? I'm in so much pain, or not work anymore? So the idea is, if you take the disability or what happened to them away, and all they do is whatever someone else would do, she's going to hospital getting treatment, that is nothing. If it doesn't inspire you to do anything different, then please don't call them inspirational or you're so strong. Because once you label them, oh, you're so strong, they can't really get away from this anymore. What is if they don't feel strong? What on the days they're absolutely terrified and they feel depressed, or when they have a illness that's so serious, they're so worried they're going to die. They will not be able or willing to share this with you anymore, because you put them on that pedestal and now they can't get down anymore. So I'm coming to the end now, and you can ask any question if you like. What I think is really important, and that's the most important for me, is that you don't use this as an opportunity to regret anything you said. I know I'm still apologizing to my friend who I said, well, at least you've got your kids. So we don't want to use sentences that start with at least and compare, like my mom died, your mom died. We had completely different things. So there are things we don't say, but be okay with the mistakes you made. And just realize that you grew up with certain beliefs, and you heard certain comments. They might not have been good for you. And now you can like reevaluate them and think, oh yeah, that's how I felt when someone said to me, oh, at least, or be grateful. I mean, Mother's Day is coming up. How many posts are we going to see? If your mom is still alive, give her a hug, because when she's not here anymore, you will regret it. Well, my mom doesn't want to talk to me right now. I'm estranged from my parents. So I'm not looking forward to this post, I have to tell you. But just be okay that now you've got new information, you can deepen this, you can read books, educate yourself a little bit, maybe speak to your friends and say, do you remember when I said this to you? And I've learned something new. I just wanted to check. Did you think as well that might not have been that useful or helpful? And I hope the tips were good and helpful for your clients, but also always include yourself. You're not just a coach, you're not just a machine. They will trigger things, they will tell you things that you might find difficult, and realize that maybe you might be grieving as well in that moment. So thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions or comments or want to share anything that it triggered in you or reminded you, then please feel free.
Thank you, Teresa. I think it was a good point that you made, that after something like this, we will be thinking, that thing that I said, should I be embarrassed? Did I make it worse, etc.? And as you say, this is not an opportunity to beat yourself up. You know, it happened, it's gone. If you want to readdress it and apologize, then absolutely fine. Talk about, you know, things that you've learned. But this isn't about you going away feeling guilty. It's about learning and having more awareness and more acceptance for being human. To be human is to err. So lots of good stuff there. Thank you, Teresa. So I'll open up the floor to everybody.
Teresa, I wanted to ask, there are several ladies here who are working with me at the moment who are not coaches, who I invited them just to hear your 7 myths. And if any of these lovely ladies wanted to work further with you, how would they find you? Where would they find you?
That's a really good question. I'm still working on that. I think because you know me, I can just give you, you know, my details, you know where I live. Yeah, you see, these are the things.
We don't want to know where you live.
I mean, in the internet realm, people know where I live.
Well, this is going to prompt you, Teresa, to get your IAPC&M profile on the directory, because then that's your shop window.
I know. You know what? I was so enthusiastic about sharing my knowledge, and then a question like that comes, like, well, I have a Facebook page. It's called "Helping You to Find Out Who You Really Are." So it's really long, but if you are on Facebook, look Teresa Mack in Leeds, and I've got like a picture with a feather and a really nice poem. And just get in touch. And I also have an email address. I don't know where we put that, but I can share the PDF with the myths and the definitions of what grief is, because I so like the second definition. It opened the door for me to really look at all the losses in my life and think, there was a change, there was a change, there was a change. And it made things really so much clearer. So if you email me at teresa.mack@griefspecialist.net, I will put that in the chat. And just get in touch with me.
And I'd just like to say, from a client perspective, a therapist client, that I've worked with Teresa over the last few weeks, and what she's helped me to see has been really, really valuable, in that what you were saying, the 7 myths, that grief is not just somebody you love dying. I have experienced a lot of things in my life that when I drew out my grief chart, there were some places where I couldn't actually get enough lines in, the amount of page there was, because so many losses had happened within such a short space of time. And I think actually doing that and being able to express with your guidance how much loss there'd been over such a short space of time. No wonder I was feeling a bit screwy. You know, allowed to feel shit right now. You know,
said it idly.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. Thank you. I think you're extremely gifted. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You did make me laugh a little bit, Teresa, when you said, and don't worry, give them a tissue, nobody will cry for 3 hours. Well, yeah. Sean looked after me after my brother died, and I think I did cry for about 3 hours. So it does happen. And you just have to let your client know it's fine, you're there, and just don't interrupt. But it's a very important point. I mean, not so much now because of Zoom, but when you are with somebody in the same room, to avoid wanting to pat them or rub their shoulder, because I think what from a British stiff upper lip point of view, what that's really doing is shutting the client down or shutting the person down. Come on, pull yourself together. So my teaching at Macmillan's and Cancer Support France was all about no touch. You pass them a tissue, you just listen, and you keep saying, I'm here, thank you for sharing.
And
even if they cry for the whole session and don't get any words out, it's fine.
And this is really interesting because it's completely different with children. And I know that because I worked as a nursery nurse. So for some reason, kids really want the hug. And if you actually don't touch them, they wail even more. So for them, and I don't know what age that changes, maybe when they become sort of 10, 11, it depends on your relationship with them, but definitely teenagers, don't touch me, don't hug me. But for little children, especially like 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds or so, they will really need the hug and the touch and the crying. And then for some reason for adults is, like you said, it's like, oh, you're reminding me I've got 2 minutes left and I have to pull myself together or so. And I don't know why that is, but it's definitely different. So if you have your own children or nieces and nephews or in a nursery and they want to hug and they cry, then don't think, oh, I learned in that webinar not to touch people. That is only for big people. Little people are okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or simply ask,
definitely.
Would you like a hug? They'll let you know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just looking in the chat.
I'd like to say something, if that's all right, Teresa. I've had more common sense in the last 30 minutes than I've heard in a long time from a lot of practitioners, and I'm not joking, and I'm serious. I think the way that you're approaching this stuff is it's most definitely the right way to go. It really is, particularly with regard to judgment or lack of, the non-judgmental approach. It is the only way with which to achieve success in this regard when you're dealing with issues like this. And you're absolutely right to tell us about triggers and reactivations and our own, because often I think we don't necessarily look after ourselves as well as we perhaps should or could do. And I know "should's" a strong word, but it is possible. I've experienced myself a reactivation in session with something that I thought that I had addressed and had been sort of processed and gone. Clearly wasn't. So we do have to be mindful of our own well-being too, even if we think we're okay and we're tickety-boo. It just gives us that extra sort of reason to go out and actively look after ourselves, because it's so important. It really is. Oh, and the other thing I picked up on as well, which I thought was really good, was the false memory stuff, which absolutely fascinates me, but I could go on all day. But the best way to deal with that, I think, is again in the same way, is by just introducing no further data into that conversation. No further data, and that's exactly, you can acknowledge, and that's great, because all they need is acknowledgement. So it's a big frightening thing, isn't it? But if you handle it, I agree entirely with what you said. If you handle yourself correctly in session, then you know that you're going to come out of it the other side without having introduced any more data, safe in the confidence that you can't therefore have introduced, the phantom sort of memory thing. I think is really concerning. Great presentation. I really enjoyed it. I've got to go and give my girls a kiss now, so I'm going to say goodnight.
Thank you for your feedback. That was really good for me as well and helpful. Take care.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
So the other thing I would just say is, and it's a shame Sean has gone, because he is one of those people, and Michael Marks at our suicide intervention talked about this last week and 2 weeks ago, is that when we've had one of these experiences with our clients, we as professionals need then to go to our supervisor, coach, mentor, or somebody to help process that as well. You cannot keep that to yourself. So if you've had that experience and it wasn't a typical coaching session, and I think therapists do this as a standard, have their own therapist, but we encourage at the IAPC&M, we encourage all coaches to have their own coach or mentor or supervisor, so that you have the opportunity to decompress on a regular basis. I don't know if you want to add anything to that thought, Teresa.
No, so as grief recovery specialists, we are encouraged to do completions with each other, do the
That's
work.
the word, completions.
How can you help other people if you're like just stuck in that moment and you don't work yourself on it? And I regularly, I meet weekly with a coach, and we sort of coach each other. And I think that, to be honest, apart from the, you know, the coaching training you have and everything, that is so important for the, I've done my coaching 2 years ago, and the change I can see in myself through the feedback. Sometimes it's not even, you don't want advice or so, but you're just wording what is going on. And while you're speaking it out loudly, you think, oh yeah, this is what affected me, or maybe that is what I need to do or so. So I could not imagine a coach being on their own, only talking to clients and never exchanging things with other people. So that is a really important point. Thank you.
Who, if anybody, would like to talk to Teresa while we've got her in the hot seat before we wrap up? Now she's an accredited coach. She's going to cost thousands for one-to-one time. So grab this time while we've got her now, before we can't afford her anymore. Debbie.
Still only going to trade you a coffee when we meet.
Yeah,
Lovely.
we regularly meet as well. So I actually have 3 coaching groups, or 3 like different days, different peoples I work with. And yeah, it's so important, really important. And I just want to say thank you to the non-coaches who came and to the coaches who came. And I hope it was really valuable. And like I said, I'm just maybe in that with grief, I'm just a page or 2 pages in the story in front of you. We just learn at different stages, we learn different things. And so I really appreciate that you took the time, you know, an hour on an evening, the day was long, and really said, oh, I want to learn a little bit more. So thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you. And those of you who are members of the IAPC&M, Sean and I are working together, and I'm hoping Teresa will be joining us. I know you're already in the child and adolescent special interest group, but I'm hoping you will be a very valuable part of the mental health and well-being SIG. You know, that we've got professional people to go and, I say decompress, but you say complete with from a supervisory point of view. So, you know, we're going to be doing a lot more to support people this year, because as you said, Teresa, you know, we're going through incredibly difficult times. Our clients are presenting ever more sophisticated and complex issues, and we as coaches have to be really well trained to be able to peel back the layers of the onion and open Pandora's box, but more importantly to deal with what comes out of that, and hopefully take the client to, or help them go to a better place. So it was lovely meeting all the new faces and seeing the familiar ones. Thank you very much for your generous spirit and sharing your expertise, Teresa. Again, congratulations on your success, and stay safe and happy, everybody. Thank you for all the lovely comments, which I'll share with Teresa later.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.